This is Between the Uprights. Football is life. The rest is just details. Here are your hosts, Joe, Matt, and Kris.
We have now moved on to the final side of the ball for our all-time NFC, AFC conference teams, and we are going to the NFC side for the NFC offense, where I'm going to start in the trenches with our offensive linemen. The caveat to all this is they had to play most of their career on the NFC conference side of the NFL, and we have a great pick of an offensive line for you. Now, I'm going to start with the center position, and I could not help myself but go with Jason Kelce, the better Kelce, my favorite Kelce, Jason Kelce in center. That guy right there, that is a team guy. That is a great guy. And who am I going to put on either side of him? Well, I don't know. Let me think about it. I think I'm going to put probably the two greatest guards of all time, in my opinion, on that side of the ball right next to him. And that is going to be my boys, Randall McDaniel from the Minnesota Vikings and Larry Allen from the Dallas Cowboys. My apologize, Dallas. I didn't mean to say Detroit. Those two guys are absolute mountains. Mountains. You cannot move these men. These men are terrifying. You don't want to go near these men because these men will absolutely maul you to death. Randall McDaniel, 12-time Pro Bowler, first-team All-Pro 7 times. If that asks you why I picked him, 220 of 222 possible NFL starts he started. Enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, played for the Minnesota Vikings and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Was with the Minnesota Vikings for 11 years before playing his final 2 years in the league with the Bucs. Then you have Larry Allen. Do I even need to tell you about Larry Allen? 11 Pro Bowls, first team All-Pro 6 times, 197 of 203 NFL starts he started. Oh, also enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So not only are they consistent, not only are they dominant, they are now the most dominant interior offensive line of all time. I'm going to say that. This center and guard matchup, this tandem, would dominate in any decade you put them in, bar none. There are no better three interior offensive linemen you could pair together from a durability standpoint, from an all-pro standpoint, from a Pro Bowl standpoint, from just a winner standpoint. No one else compares to these guys. And that takes us to the tackle position. And once again, I am stuck here looking at the tackle position. And Tyron Smith is going to be one of my tackles. And I'm going to do what Matt did. I'm going to do what Matt did in the AFC video, and I'm going to cheat. I've decided that there's no reason for me to take a substandard right tackle when I can take a great left tackle and flip him over to the right side of the ball. So Tyron Smith is going to be my left tackle, and I'm going to take Trent Williams. I'm going to put him on the right side of the offensive line.
See, now you're actually cheating, because there was a great right tackle option available, Joe. You ever heard of Lane Johnson, the right tackle?
He was on my list, but I think that Trent Williams is the better right tackle.
I think Trent Williams might be a better left tackle than wait, who'd you pick for left tackle?
Tyron Smith?
I think Trent Williams is better than
Tyron Smith.
Trent Williams is in the GOAT conversation for left tackles. Trent Williams is different now. I think I would go with Trent Williams left tackle. I mean, it's your choosing. I don't want to influence you here, but I think
how about that? Well, you know what? They're essentially swing tackles at this point, because we can have a left tackle play anywhere, right, Matt? We can have him play anywhere. So you know what? Pick one guy. They're my tackles.
But this is not the same. The AFC video, we were choosing between Joe Thomas and Sebastian Vollmer.
You're not wrong.
Not Lane Johnson and Trent Williams. Like if we're playing them in their true positions, again, I think you got to play Lane Johnson at right tackle. But again, it's just my opinion. What is my opinion, Matt?
You're right. This is my offensive line portion, Matt. You stick to your wide receivers. We'll get to them in a minute, all right? But he is right. Lane Johnson is on my list as my right tackle. If I hadn't gone and done what Matt did in the AFC, Lane Johnson would be my right tackle. You know what? Fuck it. I'm going to put I'm going to put Tyron Smith as my swing tackle. Trent Williams on the left side. Lane Johnson on the right side. Tyron Smith is my swing tackle. We didn't do one for the AFC, but fuck it. We're doing it for the NFC. There it is. That's the offensive line.
You just crumbled under pressure, by the way, Joe.
Crumbled.
I pressed you a little bit, and you just crumbled.
Bro, completely. I have no spine. I am peer pressure just intolerant, all right? It just happens. But I will say I am going to double down on my previous statement This is possibly the greatest offensive line we could possibly put out in any capacity whatsoever, bar none, hands down. I don't care what anyone's got to say. But we are going to move on to the tight ends. And Kris, you have a task now because this is not as clear-cut as the AFC. The tight ends in the NFC are not as clear-cut as the AFC tight ends. So who are your NFC picks for tight ends? You need 2.
Ooh, yeah. So this was definitely not as easy as the AFC. I think the AFC was very easy when it comes to, like, it's an obvious. There are a couple ways that someone could go tight end wise. A lot of the choices I have made previously is a lot been centered around players who are not currently playing. I looked as more as like their careers are over. This might be a little bit of a caveat because I'm gonna be 100% with you, and there might be some people who don't necessarily like this statement I'm about to make, but I think the AFC had better tight end options than
way better
the NFC did. You're right, than NFC did. So you have to look at that and be like, okay, like being honest about it. If I had to take, because obviously you have to take them, right? You need tight ends. You can't just not go with tight ends. So it's like, okay, so these are my selections. If you don't like it, it is what it is. I went with Jason Witten and George Kittle. I think Jason Witten was great in his own sense with the Dallas Cowboys. I think he was probably their best tight end they had, period. I don't think they've ever found a way to really replace him since then, to be quite honest. So when you look at Jason Witten, he's 11-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All-Pro. Unfortunately, we know the series of the Cowboys, so he never won a Super Bowl. He left his career with 74 touchdowns. He had a ridiculous amount of receptions. He had over 13,000 yards. So I think he had, for a tight end, in my opinion, I think he had a very good career. So I would look at his, I wouldn't say he's like an amazing, he's not a Travis Kelce. He's not a Gronkowski. He is, to me, would be a legitimate starting tight end that you can guarantee is going to be where he needs to be. He's going to run the routes that you need him to run. He's going to catch the ball when he needs to catch it, and he's going to block when he needs to block. That's what you're getting out of Jason Witten, essentially. So then you go on the other side, and I look at George Kittle. I am a big fan of George Kittle. At his prime, I do think he is kind of losing his way a little bit. He is a little bit older now. Obviously he's having the issues with the 49ers right now of wanting a bigger contract, given he's going into his 30s. I think that's kind of an issue at the moment. And I do believe it was something I said during the offseason that might be something they might be moving off of him for. But overall, as far as like starting on an all-time great NFC offense, I do see George Kittle as probably one of their best tight end options. He's 6'4", he's 250 pounds. You know his play. Like, there's no way anybody that is watching this video, watching what we're seeing in the NFL right now, and not looking at George Kittle. Now, is he a top tier tight end? Maybe not, but I would still put it probably in my top 10, my top 6, 7-ish, maybe somewhere in that range. I think he's again a legitimate tight end option. To me, he'd probably be tight end 1 and then have Jason Witten be the tight end 2. But again, he's great pass catching. He's a great touchdown threat for sure. He can get down the field. He can break the top off of a defense if he absolutely needs to. So he's a battle guy, right? Like he's going to battle for the ball, and even if he has the ball in his hands, he's going to battle to get more yards up the field. I think he's a great pickup, to be quite honest. So I would look at Jason Witten and George Kittle being the tight end options.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy too, because like we're sitting here and we're talking about all these different tight ends and everything like that, and all these great tight ends, and and the funny thing is, no one said anything about Jimmy Graham. 89 career touchdowns, 8,500 yards. We didn't say shit. We didn't say shit about Greg Olsen.
Really good player.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. 8,600 yards, 60 TDs. I mean, you had your choices, but to your point, George Kittle is a dominant force. And you look at, sort of what else you have and what you had to pick. And Jason Witten, there was no one who is a sure thing at the tight end position in the NFC as Jason Witten. Jason Witten was your prototypical tight end in the NFC for the better part of a decade. I mean, Tony Romo doesn't do half the things Tony Romo does without Jason Witten on the team, bar none, hands down. Yeah. Which that brings us to the wide receivers. And this is probably the most clear-cut thing outside of picking Tom Brady as the quarterback in the AFC as I have ever fucking seen, at least in my opinion, because I have 3 wide receivers that are going to start every single day and twice on Sunday. But this isn't my choice now. I don't get to pick these guys. Matt gets to pick these guys. Matt gets to pick who ends up being the wide receiver. So, Matt, outside of your guaranteed number 1 pick at slot, who are the other 2 wide receivers?
My guaranteed number 1 pick at slot is Kadarius Toney. I think
don't fucking lie to me. Don't you gas? He's an AFC player. Don't you gaslight me.
This is the NFC Rappers list, right? The NFC Wide Receivers / Rappers list, isn't it? Yeah. See, Kadarius Toney. I'm trying to tell you. But no, I mean, Joe talked about it. I mean, these selections to me are pretty obvious. The first one, I mean, what are we going to say? Jerry Rice, simply the GOAT. You want me to list off some stats? I'll list them off. All-time leader in regular season catches, yards, and touchdowns. So literally everything that matters to a receiver. The all-time leader in playoff catches and touchdowns. Travis Kelce just passed him up in yards as far as playoffs go. But again, all-time playoff leader in catches and touchdowns. 3-time Super Bowl champ, Super Bowl MVP, 13 Pro Bowls, 10-time first-team All-Pro. He's the undisputed greatest receiver of all time. Like, there's no debate. There's no doubt about it. But this guy might have to be playing the slot because I have 2 guys on the outside that are 2 of the freakiest athletes in the history of football on the outside. And the second receiver that I'm going to choose, again, is a very easy selection. It's Randy Moss, absolute freak of nature that we may never see again. He's 6'4", and he's got an argument as the fastest receiver of all time. Him and Tyreek Hill are battling it out for who's the fastest receiver ever, and Randy Moss has a great argument for it. And you could also, like, again, we saw this in the AFC a little bit more so, but we saw it in the NFC too. Like, I saw Tom Brady throw this dude balls that nobody else would even think about throwing up to a receiver. And he threw them up to Randy Moss, and Randy Moss caught him in triple coverage. Like, you could throw this guy literally whatever type of pass you wanted to throw him, and there was a really good chance that he would come down with it because he also might have the best hands that anyone's ever had. Like, this guy is unbelievable as far as his ability to catch the ball. Again, in his first 6 years in Minnesota with less than stellar quarterback play, you got Randall Cunningham in there on his last legs. Dante Culpepper looked good for, while you have Chris Carter and Randy Moss, but he wasn't an elite quarterback. His average season, 88 catches for 1,400 yards, 16 yards per catch, and 13 touchdowns. Again, an average season for the first 6 years of Randy Moss's career was way better than 99.9% of receivers' seasons. So again, another very easy selection there. And then maybe, listen, again, I have 2 ex-receivers already. Jerry Rice is a better route runner, so we can put him in the slot. Maybe I should go with a true slot receiver. I don't want to. I have no desire to do that. I want to put another giant ex-receiver on the field that is going to, again, one of the freakiest athletes of all time. I'm going with Megatron, Calvin Johnson. He's my other ex-receiver. Again, we've never seen anything like Calvin Johnson athletically either. He's 6'5", 235, runs a 4.3 40. Like, this guy is an unbelievable athlete. And again, his career spoke to that as well. Again, he led the league in receptions once, led the league in touchdowns once, led the league in yards twice. He had the best receiving yards season of all time in 2012 with 1,964, career 16 yards per catch. So again, a huge big play threat. And again, just because he was playing with the Detroit Lions and he had absolutely no help, he only played in 2 playoff games. One of those playoff games, he had 12 catches for 211 yards and 2 touchdowns. So again, whenever he got an opportunity to play in big moments, he stepped up. And again, he's another guy. You saw what Matthew Stafford was doing with him. He would just throw some shit up in the air to Calvin Johnson with 3 guys on him, with 2 guys on him at the goal line. We saw Calvin Johnson doubled at the goal line because they knew they were going to throw him a fade. So again, that's how good Calvin Johnson is. He'll be dominant in the red zone. He'll be dominant everywhere on the field. He can run routes. He can do whatever you want him to do. He can take the top off of defense. This guy's one of the best athletes of all time. And again, his career was cut short due to injury and playing for the Lions while they weren't the Lions that we know now. But again, Calvin Johnson has to be in an all-time receiving core in the NFC. So again, Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, Calvin Johnson. You can't really argue with anything there because those are 3 of the greatest receivers of all time.
Yeah. And, it's funny, too, because like we were talking about this pre-video and we were talking about how just absolutely loaded the NFC is in wide receiver talent. Yes. Currently, I mean, like Justin Jefferson, if he continues the way he's going to have a case in that conversation of how you do not pick him to be one of the all-time wide receivers just because of how good Justin Jefferson is and what he brings to that offense. And then we talk about Cooper Kupp having one of the greatest wide receiver seasons we've ever seen, and then all these things that happen and all this talk and everything like that. And we're sitting there.
I left out T.O. Like he's like
Terrell Owens,
one of the 3-4 greatest receivers of all time. Like it's ridiculous the type of the receivers that the NFC has had over the years.
The fact that man played, I believe it was with a hamster with a torn ACL or something like that, played in the Super Bowl against the Patriots. Like
broken leg.
It was like like fucking what?
and went for over 100 yards. By the way.
Yeah. No big deal. No big deal.
Not at all.
Yeah, we didn't call that a single Packers wide receiver, by the way, which is nuts.
By the way, prime for prime, Sterling Sharp deserves to be in that conversation too. My God, you go back and look at Sterling Sharp's prime. Good Lord, back in the day. Obviously, none of us were. Maybe Joe was. Joe's like 100 years old in spirit. But back in the day, they were talking about like Jerry Rice and Sterling Sharp in that same kind of conversation. Like it wasn't like, oh, Jerry's way better. It was like, I don't know, like Sterling Sharp is just as good as Jerry Rice. That was the type of conversations that they were having back in Joe's day. So again, he's another guy that deserves strong consideration because he had a hell of a career, even though his was cut short by injury.
Absolutely. And so that brings us to our running back position. And once again, we're going with a 1-2 punch. We have our main running back and then our change of pace back. The main running back, easy for me. My main running back was easy. It's all day. All day, every day, AP. That is my workhorse between the tackles because in that man's prime, he was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I now have a major decision on my hands because this is probably the hardest decision I've ever made for a change of pace. And I'm going to say something. I'm going to list two of the guys I'm thinking about right now. The first guy is a 7-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All-Pro. Won a couple of MVPs, had 1,000 receiving yards and 1,000 rushing yards in a season. The year he won MVP. Was offensive rookie of the year. Won one Burt Bell Award and a bunch of other awards and everything else like that. The other guy, who I'm thinking about right now, 10-time Pro Bowler, 6-time All-Pro, also won MVPs, also won Offensive Rookie of the Year, also won Offensive Player of the Year multiple times.
Come on.
The first guy, who do you think the first guy is?
I had it kind of sounded like CMC a little bit to me, but I don't.
That's Marshall Faulk.
Oh, Marshall Faulk. Okay.
Marshall Faulk had, I'll break it down for you. Let me find it real quick. I have it up. In his 1999 season, he ran for 1,381 yards, 7 touchdowns, which is how the fuck you go for that many yards and only get 7 touchdowns beyond me. He also caught for 1,048 yards and 5 touchdowns. The guy went for 2,400 total yards, scored 13 touchdowns. I don't know how that happens, but he also won a Super Bowl. Who do you think my other guy was?
Barry Sanders.
It is Barry Sanders every day of the week. Barry never had a rushing season where he didn't rush for at least 1,000 yards. However, he was not as prolific of a pass catcher as Marshall Faulk was. And so I already have my guy who can run all day, every day in AP.
It's horrible.
So what do I do? Do I cut Adrian Peterson and go Barry Sanders, Marshall Faulk?
That's what I would have done, personally. Not gonna lie to you.
And this seemed clear cut.
I love AP, but that's what I had on mine, to be honest. My running back was that exact setup. Your battle right now was mine.
Yeah. And you know the crazy thing is, as I'm sitting here, we're talking about this. You know who hasn't even been brought up?
Walter Payton.
The all-time rushing leader in yards, Emmitt Smith. Walter Payton.
It's hard, man. The NFC's hard. There's just so much.
The single season leader in rushing yards.
By the way, in our AFC video, we also didn't bring up Jim Brown, which is pretty crazy because he's a 3-time MVP, won a championship with the Browns. But again, that's just a little bit before our era. But again, he's one of the greatest football players of all time too. But Joe, make the right
Bo Jackson.
Bo Jackson.
I think that I love AP, and I made it sound like AP was the clear-cut answer. A running back room of Barry Sanders and Marshall Faulk is absolutely fucking terrifying to me. I thought Derrick Henry, LaDainian Tomlinson was scary.
Yeah.
Just remember, Barry Sanders played behind some of the historically worst offensive lines in NFL history. The year he ran for 2,000 yards, I believe there was a stat out there. I'll have to look it up. I couldn't find it right now. He had something like negative 1,300 yards, which means for Barry Sanders to eclipse the 2,000-yard mark, he had to essentially run for 3,300 yards. Do you understand what that means?
He's in my opinion, he's the greatest running back of all time.
Running back of all time.
The things that he did, and again, like him being on this team, you talked about the offensive line with freaking Randy Moss and Calvin Johnson. Like the safeties can't come up. Like you have to like Randy Moss is there. Like we have to stay back. And now you have Barry Sanders, who, like you just mentioned, behind one of the greatest offensive lines of all time. And again, Barry Sanders, 4th all-time leading rusher. He played 10 seasons. He played 10 seasons, and he's the 4th all-time leading rusher. Again, like the numbers that you see from this guy, and again, while he was on the Detroit Lions, like all of that happened while I don't know about you guys. I can't name another Detroit Lion that was on the team while Barry Sanders was on the team, and he was doing all of that. So again, with the team that we have here, like Barry Sanders has to be there. So yeah, you can debate between Marshall Faulk and AP. Like I see both sides of that. AP is more of like a true, give him the ball 30 times a game, workhorse back, and Marshall Faulk is a lot better pass catching back, but Barry Sanders has to be on the team. That's where I stand. Barry Sanders has to be on the freaking team.
Yeah, this is rough, right? Because you're talking about Adrian Peterson, who by far his Minnesota days were outstanding. Like the guy was the face of the NFL for a decent amount of time on, once again, in similar to Calvin Johnson's situation, a not good Minnesota Vikings team. He single-handedly carried them multiple times to almost being a playoff team, like all the time. The guy was an absolute stud. And, the fact he doesn't make this team, and like, I even had, because of the season Saquon Barkley had recently, I had to look and see. I was like, injuries, stuff like that kind of derailed that. It was a very short discussion for me on my end. But yeah, putting Marshall Faulk and Barry Sanders in the backfield, and like I said, no disrespect to Emmitt Smith, no disrespect to Walter Payton, no disrespect to Adrian Peterson, but Marshall Faulk and Barry Sanders is probably the most dangerous, historically dangerous backfield you could possibly have. And if you want to remember, Marshall Faulk was also part of the St. Louis Rams' greatest show on turf team, and he was primarily one of the reasons it was the greatest show on turf.
That would be, in my opinion, though, that would be a reason why you might take Adrian Peterson over him, because you're like, well, Marshall Faulk put all these amazing numbers, but he had Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce and Kurt Warner surrounding him, whereas
not in his Colts days.
Yeah, well, I mean, he also worked with Peyton Manning there for a little while too,
1 year.
It's like,
no, he got traded. He got traded.
Yeah, and then he got traded to the Rams. But again, so what did Adrian Peterson have to work with while he was in Minnesota? His quarterbacks are Christian Ponder and freaking Teddy Bridgewater. That ain't Kurt Warner. And
I need my receiving back. I need my receiving back.
I trust Barry Sanders to catch them freaking passes. I don't know, but again, hey,
I don't know. He didn't have a quarterback. They just turned around and handed it off to him once again. Yeah, no, I know Marshall Faulk can catch a football. I know Marshall Faulk's catching a football, but we've talked enough about the running backs.
You still haven't.
I did. It's Barry Sanders and Marshall Faulk. I don't give a fuck. I love AP to death all day. Is great, but I'm going Marshall Faulk. So now we go to quarterbacks, and I know where my head is at for my starting quarterback in the NFC. But I also had this conversation with one of my friends, and they were like, they mentioned a bunch of other really great quarterbacks that were in the NFC. So, Kris, this is probably another one that's not easy because of just the amount of talent you can select from in this quarterback group.
It's not at all. So I'm going to definitely probably about to pull a U and put this out to the group because this was a tough one for me. I am a Joe Montana fan. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a big Joe Montana fan. So he was my okay. In the introspective, like when you start looking into it, right? Like he's my me, like duh, like that's easy. But then when you start really looking into it, like but there's so many other options. So me personally, I was stuck between Joe Montana and Aaron Rodgers while he was in. Yeah, I know.
What?
I wasn't a fan of it either. I'm not a huge fan of Aaron Rodgers, but you can't really take away what he was able to do when he was with the Packers, right? Like he might be off the field, he might not be your favorite person, but on the field with with them, it was
My
hard
thing
to just
is,
ignore him.
My thing is, he didn't really do anything that Brett Favre didn't do, right? Like, can we honestly say that? And Brett Favre's a way better locker room guy outside of what happened in New York. That was a bad locker room experience.
Just talking about just
everyone has bad locker room experience for the Jets.
On the field stuff, right? Like taking all the off field stuff gone, right? So he's still been the Pro Bowl 10 times. He's still been an All Pro. He's obviously been the the MVP of the season for like I think it was like 4 years straight, damn near. He's done a lot with his career. Now he's on the back end of that. We know this, and we've had plenty of conversations about his stuff now. But if you're looking at a prime Aaron Rodgers, it is really hard to overlook that for me when you're talking about an NFC team that you're going. Now, when we start getting to these conversations where it's like, which NFC team wins this particular game, that's where this matters to me. Because it's like, all right, like if you're putting up this NFC offensive team against the best AFC defensive team, which quarterback is going to give you the best opportunity to get that done? Because we know how stacked that AFC defense team
Eli
is.
Manning.
And you're cut off. So
damn. That might actually do it, though.
If Brady's starting, that's fucking doing it.
Either Eli or Foles, one or the other.
Valid. So my in between was Joe Montana and Aaron Rodgers. But like you said, there are a ton of different people you could look at and be like, they're probably a better fit.
All right.
So I will put it out to the group. I was stuck between I would put them both on my team, Joe Montana and Aaron Rodgers. I don't know who would be one, who would be two, but I would put them both. But I'm still stuck on like if that's who even I would go forward with, knowing what I know about those two players.
Ugh. So I know who is the top on my list. Okay. And this is a homer pick for me because of who this is my favorite quarterback of all time. Okay. I love this guy. I'm a big Drew Brees believer. Mm-hmm. Drew Brees threw for 5,000 yards more times than I think I can count. And the only reason he hasn't owned the all-time passing record is because Tom Brady played 2 extra years just so he could get one more check in the box to an already illustrious career. Couldn't let Brees have one fucking thing, man. But I like Drew Brees. I think Drew Brees showed that he was a great quarterback. He was a smaller quarterback and still iconically standing in the pocket. Tippy toes, head back, trying to stare over everybody. I love it. Granted, we built him a goddamn mountain range in front of him for the offensive line, so we ain't seeing over shit. But I love Drew Brees for this situation. Aaron Rodgers, to me, you guys may not have remembered Brett Favre in his prime, but Brett Favre did a lot of the things that Aaron Rodgers was known to do. The wacky passes off the back foot. I mean, still to this day, if you don't remember him as a Minnesota Viking, running out, getting tripped up, launching in the air, and literally flicking a ball, left-handed, I might add, flicking the ball 40 yards down the field.
Yeah.
All right? Love Brett Favre. Also, no one said anything about Troy Aikman, 3-time Super Bowl in the early 90s. We didn't mention a current quarterback who's absolutely fantastic and played in a pedestrian offense for most of his career, Matthew Stafford.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, I like every one of those players I just mentioned better than I like Aaron Rodgers.
Listen, and two, we also didn't mention Kurt Warner too, who played a lot of his career for the Rams, and he was an incredible quarterback as well.
Went to the Cardinals and took them to the Super Bowl.
This, I'll tell you, this one right here has me in a blender. Ladies and gentlemen, this one's got me in a freaking blender because, again, when you look at the freaking receivers that we have on this team, right? I personally, I'm kind of with Joe. I like Drew Brees a lot. Like he's maybe the most accurate quarterback of all time, but he's not like the strongest arm. Like he doesn't have the best deep ball of all time. So with guys like Randy Moss and Calvin Johnson, you want somebody who's got a little bit of a stronger arm, right? So that leads you to Favre and Rodgers. But again, for me, like I'm taking in like a little bit of locker room into effect where Aaron Rodgers is going going to bring some of that drama. And we've seen Brett Favre's kind of a piece of shit off the field. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know if I want either of those guys in my locker room. You know what I'm saying?
Same guy. You're the same guy.
Right. So then you think about Matthew Stafford. If he would have had Calvin Johnson combined with freaking Randy Moss and Jerry Rice, it's like, what would we have seen from Matthew Stafford in his prime? You know, that would be crazy. And also, too, I got to mention here, okay, if we're talking about just like one game,
shit, dude, we didn't think about two guys.
No, I'm talking about one game, maybe the best player I've ever seen, just like eye test wise, like Michael Vick. Like,
yeah, we didn't say shit about Vic.
Like if Michael Vick has Randy
also
Moss,
not a great person.
also questionable off the field issues there for him as well. But again, you have Michael Vick throwing freaking deep balls to Randy Moss, and then he can break off himself and run it for 90 yards. Like, I'm thinking about Michael Vick a little bit, to be honest. Like, that would be insane.
It's tough.
And we also got to take into consideration, if we're going to look at Michael Vick, how did nobody mention Prime Cam?
Yeah, Cam Newton too would be crazy.
Cam.
The only reason I wouldn't go with Prime Cam is just because he wasn't
arm accuracy.
His accuracy wasn't as good, and his even though he had a really good arm, like Michael Vick could like flick the ball 70 yards, like that
Michael
throw,
Vick
like
was a phenom, man.
the game that he had with the Eagles with Deshaun Jackson, where the first play of the game he throws it 70 yards, like just literally doing that, like, and then he scores 6 touchdowns and runs all over the place. Like that game is like stuck in my mind when thinking about this, and it's like, man, if we just had Michael Vick with all these guys and he was like prime Michael Vick, how would this team look? So again, I like Drew. I think I might go with Drew Brees, but like I'm having a hard time not going with Michael Vick here. I'm going to be honest.
I don't know. I'm not gonna lie.
I like Vick starting, Brees off the bench if we have to have a backup.
Yeah,
I like that lineup.
I could go with that.
People
I like
aren't
that
gonna
lineup
like that at all. I guarantee you people are going to be like, why isn't Aaron Rodgers in there? Why isn't Brett Favre in there? Dude, prime Michael Vick, bro. Prime Michael Vick, man. I've never seen anything like that, bro. I've never seen anything like prime Michael Vick.
Because
just remember, all right, the Falcons shipped Brett Favre out and decided to go with Michael Vick at the end of the day. So that tells you everything you need to know about how that worked out.
Falcons
Brett Favre was a Falcon.
Smart organization too. Falcons widely acknowledged smart organization.
Yeah.
And just in case you're upset about the Drew Brees pick, all right? From, let's see here, 2006 until 2017, the man threw for 4,000 or more yards, including 5 5,000-yard seasons.
Yeah, I can't really
all right?
about that.
Okay, just so we're clear on what Drew Brees did. It even at the end when his arm had fallen off and everyone thought he was done, the man still had a 70+ completion percentage and threw for a 27-4 and a 24-6 and a 32-5 TD to interception ratio his final 3 seasons in the league. So Drew Brees is a great quarterback who doesn't get enough love. I'm a huge Drew Brees fan.
And so with Drew Brees, I mean, you look at the rest of the quarterbacks that we're talking about and the amount of support that they had. Like, who's Drew Brees' number 1 receiver? We're talking about Marcus Colston. We're talking about like Brandon Cooks, like
Jimmy Graham.
Jimmy Graham, guys who are like really good players, but nobody who's like Randy Moss or Calvin Johnson or anything like that. And, Sean Payton's a great head coach too, but it's not like he's Bill Belichick and it's not like he's Bill Walsh. It's not like he's some of these guys, So again, Drew Brees did a lot. And 2, he came in after Hurricane Katrina and completely flipped a Saints organization that now, especially now looking at how bad the Saints organization, seeing what Drew Brees did with that organization is like, you might as well have done that with the Browns, like that's an amazing accomplishment for Drew Brees, So again, I think Drew Brees is a very, very valid selection, whether he's starting or he's coming off the bench.
Yeah. And so that is it. We've got our defenses and offenses for the NFC and AFC. In our next video, we are going to be comparing these teams and seeing who would win in a matchup. And this is going to be absolutely diabolical. I have no idea what these people are going to say. I am absolutely at the edge of my seat right now, and I don't even know who I want to win.
This has been Between the Uprights. Football is life. The rest is just details.